We just stepped on their face with a hobnail boot and broke their nose. We just crushed their face.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Glory UGA podcast, where today I'm going to reveal my top 5 breakout players for the Georgia Bulldogs in 2025. Going to have a lot of fun with that today. But before we get there, if you haven't already and you're a diehard Georgia fan, go ahead, subscribe right now, turn those notifications on, like this video. And this is the type of video, guys, that I truly would love to get your comments, get your thoughts. This is the type of topic that kind of lends itself. Let me know. Who would you have on your list of Georgia's top 5 breakout players? I'm sure you'll agree with some of the guys I have on my list. You probably want to agree with all of them. So let me know what I got right, what I got wrong. I'd love to hear from you guys. All right, top 5 breakout players for Georgia football in 2025. Now, before we go any further, we're going to get to the list here, guys, in just like 30 seconds. Give me a second here. I want to make sure that we define what I mean by breakout players. I think that term can mean different things to different people. And I just want to make sure that we're speaking the same language here today on this podcast. Whether your definition for breakout players is the same as mine, I want to make sure we're all talking about the same thing. So to me, the guy doing this episode right now, a breakout player is a player that has contributed for Georgia. They played a fair amount, maybe even played a lot for Georgia, done really good things, been a good player, but maybe just haven't quite been that elite top end star player. But these are players that Georgia fans probably know. Like real Georgia fans, you know these players. But maybe the rank and file average college football fan out there in the world, the casual fan, doesn't know their names yet. But now these are guys that are ready to break out and become bona fide stars for Georgia in 2025. The next crop of stars that will become household names for the Georgia Bulldogs in 2025. So when I say breakout player, that's what I'm talking about. That's how I define it. So let's get into it, guys. And look, I'm going to be real with y'all. I agonized over this list. This is not something I sat down and put together a list like 5 minutes before I started up the camera here. That's not what happened here. I've been working on this, been thinking about this for a couple of weeks. I've been thinking about it, laying in bed at night. Oh my God, do I really have him inside the top 5? How do I not have him inside the top 5? I've been thinking about it while I'm at the gym, while I'm running, while I'm in the shower, while I'm sitting there watching TV at night. My brain's been on this. Yeah, maybe some OCD tendencies, maybe, I don't know, probably, but I have agonized over this list. I've had a number of different iterations. I've had guys inside the top 5, and they moved them out of the top 5. Guys are out of the top 5. They got moved in and out and back in and back out. I've gone back and forth, guys, okay? I just say that to make sure that we all understand that I'm not trying to tell you that this is a definitive list of Georgia's top 5 breakout players. It's my list. These are the players that I think that I am pinpointing right now. Even though I've gone back and forth, all right, gone back and forth, admittedly, these are players that I am pinpointing right now. I'm identifying as the 5 players most likely to break out and become stars. Guys, maybe haven't been full-on stars yet, but are most likely to become stars this year for Georgia. Okay, so that's what we're talking about here. All right, coming in number 5. This one is what I was just talking about. This is case in point. This player was on the list, he was off the list, he was higher on the list, then he fell back on the list. So I settled at number 5 with running back Nate Frazier. And as of about like 10 minutes before I did this list, Nate was on the outside looking in. He was at number 6. I decided to move him into the top 5. Went back and forth on it. All right, but let's explain why Nate Frazier is among, in my opinion, Georgia's top 5 breakout players. Why did he make this list? Well, number 1, let's not forget, guys, as a true freshman a year ago, as much as we love what we got from Trevor Etienne, and when he was healthy, he was great for us, let's not forget that it was true freshman Nate Frazier that actually led the Georgia Bulldogs in rushing a year ago. Now, of course, Etienne missed game 1 with a suspension. There was some injury situation at the end of the year. Okay, all that's very, very true. But still, regardless, Nate Frazier led Georgia in rushing a year ago. And I know that we struggled to run the football in general, obviously, but Nate was the guy at the end of the season that had more rushing yards than any other player on the team. He averaged 5 yards per carry, 133 rushes on the year, 671 yards total. All right. So Nate Frazier is a guy Georgia fans, again, like when I say breakout player, I'm not talking about a guy that's off the radar. That's what I would classify as a sleeper. These are guys that but I think we're ready to take that next step and become a star for Georgia. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen for Nate Frazier. I do also want to rewind the clock back to almost a year ago now. So I guess it was late July, early August. I can't remember the exact day. Got a chance to go to one of the fall camp practices last year. And I came back and I did a video kind of recapping everything that I saw for you guys. And the number one item on my list, my biggest takeaway from that practice was that Nate Frazier was a dude. Like he was the guy more than anybody on the team out there that flashed to me, that caught my eye, that caught my attention. Because the dude was just moving at a different speed. He was playing at a different speed. The guy looked like a bona fide star to me. So I came on here before last season, about a month and a half before the season, and was telling everyone who would listen, Nate Frazier is the real deal. In fact, I went on a limb because it's hard to say about a true freshman who's never played before, but I said he was the next great Georgia running back, right? Now, he had his ups and downs at times last year, right? Some games he was better than others, but he also had moments where he was spectacular. Remember the game one against Clemson, like off the bat against Clemson, second half, that explosive home run that he had, just kind of weaving back and forth, cutting back across the field. This guy has explosive home run ability in a way that we haven't really had for running backs maybe since DeAndre Swift. Maybe. I mean, we've had some good backs since then. I mean, look, James Cook was a home run guy too. I'm not gonna slander James Cook here, but Nate Frazier has that explosive home run ability. Okay, he's twitchy in space and he runs exceptionally hard. For a guy that's not small, not the biggest back in the world, he runs like he's 240 pounds. He looks like he wants to run through people. He will put his shoulder down and he will just try to grind out tough yards. Tough physical runner to go along with explosive home run ability and twitch that make you miss. That can make you miss in the hole. He can make you miss in space. He's got the goods, guys. And I've been saying that for over a year. Now, as a freshman, yeah, there are some things he needs to work on. Holding on the football, number one. Let's make sure we do a better job of that, for sure. And I also would say, going back and rewatching some of the tape throughout the course of this offseason, something that I saw at times last year, but certainly kind of was hammered home as I was going back and rewatching the tape this offseason, he's got to be more patient, okay? And that's not uncommon among freshman backs, right? He was almost at times, it seemed like he was so eager to make a play that he would take the football from Carson Beck and just run into the line with reckless abandon. He would not always give his linemen, especially when we're running some gap scheme stuff, when we're pulling guards, pulling tackles, pulling centers. He wouldn't always give them time to get out in front and allow them to set up the blocks and then run and play off those blocks. He would do it fine at times. He just didn't do it consistently enough for my liking, and that's okay. He's a freshman. Guys like Nate Frazier, they come in and they're just studs at the high school level. Even though he played at Mater Dei, big time high school, a lot of good high school football out there where he was playing, good competition. Like he's still just physically better than everybody. Like he doesn't necessarily have to set up blocks as much. Just get out in open space and Nate's gonna run by you, around you, through you, all those things, right? College, a little bit different. You've got to learn to play the position. There's some nuances of playing that position. If you're running duo, reading the inside linebacker. Where is he trying to fit and playing off of that? It's the nuances like that that I think as a freshman he wasn't fully adept at. But I am very confident that in year two he is going to be much better at those things, and to go along with just immense physical ability. This guy is going to be a star for Georgia. He's going to be running back one. I feel very confident saying that. He was all spring long. I know we're bringing in the big transfer McCray from Illinois, who I also think is going to get a lot of carries for Georgia. It might be a nice 1-2 punch there. But Nate is going to be running back one. He's going to be running back one, guys. That's who he's going to be for Georgia. And just the nature of the position, the visible nature of the position, that's like even casual fans, they watch running back because they say, oh, he got the football. He ran the ball, made a big play. It's easier to identify what those players are, the guys that carry the football, how well they're doing, than it is like an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman or a tight end per se, right? So by the nature of the position, being running back one is immense physical ability. I do think Nate Frazier is going to take a big step in year two and become an absolute star for Georgia at the running back position. So definitely a breakout candidate there. Coming in at number 4. This is a guy that I'm sure a lot of you would probably have higher on your list, and I don't begrudge you that. If you do, I hear you, man. I hear you. This is another guy I agonize with. At times had him a little higher. I ended up having him at number 4, and that's inside linebacker CJ Allen. Now, I'm an inside linebacker guy myself. Those of you who've been with the podcast for a long time, you know this. You know old school inside linebacker myself, playing days back a long, long time ago. Coached it for a little while. Love inside linebacker play. That's my baby, right? And I love CJ Allen. I love this guy, and I'm not like that's not news to anyone. If you watch the show, you know how I feel about CJ Allen. And I also know that I'm not the only one who feels that way. This guy's been a good player since day one. Okay. Now, as a freshman, I do think that we kind of built him up to be to be better than he actually played as a true freshman. He definitely showed signs as a true freshman, but he wasn't great. Last year, I thought CJ took significant strides in the right direction and became a really, really good football player. I think last year he became the guy that people were trying to build him up to, like saying what he was as a true freshman, I guess is what I would say. But last year, guys, he played 67% of our snaps at inside linebacker. Now, we have a loaded inside linebacker room. But CJ played more than anybody in that room. Now, part of that was Smile Monday dealt with injuries for a portion of the year. And behind him, he had some talented players just weren't quite ready to be more full-time players. But CJ was a stalwart, probably the stalwart for that defense last year at inside linebacker. And now he's going into year 3 in the Georgia system at inside linebacker. And if you follow Georgia football, which if you're watching this podcast, if you're listening right now, I know that you do, you know the year 3 rule about Georgia inside linebackers. It was further reinforced last year when Jalen Walker became the 3rd player in Georgia and Kirby Smart's tenure at Georgia and Glenn Schumann's tenure at Georgia to win the Buckus Award for the nation's top inside linebacker. And when did he win it? That's right, year 3. When did Kobe Dean win it? That's right, year 3. When did Roquan Smith win it? That's right, year 3. What year is CJ Allen going into? You guessed it, year 3, all right? The Georgia linebacker year 3 rule applies here. And this is not like CJ's coming out of nowhere. Like, he was really good for Georgia last year. This year, with Smile Monday moving on, with Malachi Starks moving on, with Dan Jackson moving on, he is, I think, the clear leader for this entire Georgia defense. This is a guy that the coaches were raving about. You're hearing all these rave reviews about him, like knowing the system and working hard behind the scenes, like soaking up the playbook as a true freshman. And I do think at times, as a true freshman, one of the things that got him, his eyes were all over the place, which happens with true freshmen. He was hesitant with his reads sometimes. He got fooled more than once, quite a few times as a true freshman. But last year, he cleaned that up tremendously. He was seeing the field a lot better. He was seeing the plays a lot better. I have always felt that CJ's more of a downhill, like old school off ball, like downhill thumper type inside linebacker, kind of like Shadarius Tootle, like you talked about in the episode earlier this week that flipped from Auburn. But he also has gotten better in coverage. As a freshman, not great. That was one of the areas I thought that he really, really struggled with. But last year, I'm not saying he was an elite cover guy inside linebacker, but he was much better. He was better than Jalen Walker. Jalen Walker, as much as we love Jalen Walker, as much as I love that guy, and as awesome as he was for us, he got picked on in coverage sometimes. CJ didn't as much last year. He was much better in coverage. I think he's more comfortable in space now. He doesn't have the highest upside of the linebackers in Georgia's inside linebacker room, which I think is arguably the most talented position in all of college football. Like, if you look at top to bottom, the talent that we've amassed in that room, I think you can make a strong argument for Georgia's inside linebacker room just based on sheer talent. Maybe not on production yet because some of the guys are still young, but talent-wise, straight up loaded. So I don't think he is as physically gifted as a guy like Chris Cole or James Williams. And honestly, not even as physically gifted as Raylan Wilson, right? His running mate there probably started alongside him in inside linebacker this year. So he might not have as high long-term upside as some of his other teammates in that inside linebacker room at Georgia. But going into this year, if we're talking about 2025, he is the guy at that position. I think he's the one that's closest to being ready to take that next step and become an absolute star for Georgia at inside linebacker. I think he knows the system. He's played more than the other guys. He has more experience. He's the leader on the defense. This is CJ Allen's year. Love Raylan Wilson. Love Chris Cole. Love James Williams. They're all going to play. They're all going to do great things. I think they all probably have higher upsides long-term than CJ Allen physically, athletically. But this is CJ's year. All right, this is his defense. So I'm going to go CJ Allen, number 4. All right, coming in number 3. Now, I'm curious, how many of you would have had Christen Miller, defensive tackle, on your list? This is the one I just have a feeling I'm going to get some pushback on this one. Maybe you are all in agreement with me. I don't know. But this is a guy that I have been very high on for a couple of years. All right, I was very high on him coming out of high school. I love the raw physical ability, the athleticism, the explosiveness, that first step quickness off the ball. As a redshirt freshman, he was playing wildly out of position, guys. He's a 3 tech all the way. Okay. He's 6'4", about 300, 310 pounds, somewhere in that range, right? Depending on a given day, right? But he was playing nose guard primarily in 2023. Okay, that's what he was when he got snaps as a redshirt freshman. He was primarily playing nose guard, backing up Nazir Stackhouse, which is just not what he's built to do. I'm not saying he can't function there effectively, which he did. Like that's the thing about Christen Miller. He's not a nose guard, but he would actually hold the point of attack very well as a 300, 310-pound nose guard as a redshirt freshman. Now, last year, he got to play more of a natural position, got to play more three-tech, especially early in the year with Warren Brinson banged up for the first couple of games. So he got to play more of a natural position. I thought he really started to show what he was capable of being, what he can do when allowed to play that much more natural position of the three-tech. I say three-tech's more of a natural position for him because he's not a two-gapper guy. Like he's not a big space-eating two-gapper, okay, where he's going to hold the point of attack and he's just going to eat up blocks. He's going to force double teams and help his team win that way, the way that Jordan Davis did, right? That Stackhouse did, maybe not to the degree that Jordan Davis did, but the way that he certainly helped us there at the nose guard position. He can do that to some degree, but that's not what makes Christen Miller special. What makes him special is his ability to penetrate and disrupt. That's what he got more of an opportunity to do last year. To go along with, again, also still being very strong at the point of attack against the run. He's hard to move, but he has that elite first step quickness, that explosiveness off the ball that allows him to be a disruptive playmaker in the backfield. And I would like to see him give us more of a pass rush, but I think that he can this year. And I think one thing we had to factor in last year. Now, he got banged up towards the end of last year, right? Missed the last couple of games, even when he was playing the last few games there, was not super effective. But if we go back to the beginning of last year, do you remember how banged up our defensive line was? Do you remember how many snaps the very few guys that were healthy had to play? And I'm talking Stackhouse in the middle. You had TID, Tyrone Ingram Dawkins on the edge of the 5-tech, and Christen Miller at the 3-tech. Those three guys are playing an abnormally large number of snaps for Georgia on the defensive line. So if you go back to 2021, all right, so we had a bunch of good players on that defensive line in 2021. As great as they were, those guys barely played 40% of the snaps. Jordan Davis played 39% of our snaps in 2021, all right? Jalen Carter, awesome, right? Played 40% of our snaps in 2021. Devontae Wyatt, another first rounder, played 42% of our snaps in 2021. Well, how many snaps was Christen Miller playing early last year? Well, against Clemson week 1, 56%. Kentucky week 3, the dude played 80% of our defensive snaps, 80% on the defensive line. Bama, 57%. Texas, 53%. Florida, 60%. So what I'm telling you is, in Georgia's biggest games last year, when he was healthy, before he went down with injury later in the year, this guy was playing an obscene number of snaps, far more snaps than we typically want our defensive lineman to play. Now, why does that matter? Because the guy was gassed, okay? Now, he was a warrior for us, and he just toughed it out, but he was not able to be as explosive on a down in, down out basis as he normally would in a normal situation where we don't have all those injuries because the dude was just worn out. He was playing so many snaps. So now this year, with Jordan Hall back, hopefully fully healthy, with Xavier McLeod, right? With Namdi Boko stepping up, with Elijah Griffin, 5-star freshman. I think he's going to be an impact guy for Georgia, at least help us out on the defensive line this year. Isaiah Horton coming into transfer. We have hopefully, if guys don't get hurt, knock on wood, we'll have a lot more healthy bodies that will allow us to rotate more up front, which will free up Christen Miller to play instead of playing like 55 to 65% of our snaps, 80% against Kentucky. Instead of playing that volume of snaps, he'll be playing maybe 40%. And in those 40% of the snaps you're playing, you might not be playing as many snaps, but now you can go harder because you're more rested when you're on the field, right? You're not gassed. You're not worn down the way that he was at times last year in games. So I think that's going to help Christen Miller be even more effective this year for Georgia than he was last year. And guys, make no mistake about it. Christen Miller was a dude for Georgia last year. He's not a household name yet. He's not a Jalen Carter name yet. He's not a Jordan Davis name yet. And maybe he won't become a name like those. But I do think that he's going to be a big-time player for Georgia, the defensive line this year. I think he's going to break out. And I don't think it's a stretch to say that Christen Miller puts himself in the conversation to be a first-round draft pick in next year's NFL draft. I don't know if it'll happen for sure, but if he can stay healthy, and if he can capitalize on the potential I think he has and not play as high of a volume of snaps, I think Christen Miller's got first-round potential. I really, truly do believe that, guy. So I know that one might be a little controversial, but I got Christen Miller, defensive tackle, coming in at number 3. Now, coming in at number 2, this is one, man, I struggle with this one. Should he have been higher on the list? Should he have been lower on the list? Should he have been on the list at all? Should some of his running mates at his position be on the list? But number two, I settled with wide receiver Colbie Young. Now, this one might be even more controversial than Christen Miller because the reality is Colbie Young has done very little at Georgia. He's been here for 1 year, 11 catches, 149 yards receiving last year, 2 touchdowns, and then we know what happened with the off the field stuff. It's behind him now, but he wasn't overly productive for Georgia. And at Miami, prior to Georgia, he was good, but his numbers were good. Not elite though, right? They didn't jump out at you. They didn't scream star, right? 79 catches, 939 yards, 10 touchdowns at Miami over the course of 2 years prior to coming to Georgia. All right, comes Georgia last year, and I'm telling you guys, like when I saw at spring practice last year, he looked like a dude, man. When I saw at fall camp, looked like a dude. But that was early in fall camp. Then he gets banged up. He misses the back half of fall camp. That set him back to open the year. And it kind of set him back in terms of like building rapport with Carson Beck. He didn't play very much early on. He was still not fully healthy to open the year. But he played some at Clemson, had a touchdown catch. Probably should have had two. Carson throws one of them, the RPO a little higher. But hey, neither here nor there. But had a touchdown catch in that game. And had some good moments. If you remember the second half of the Alabama game, this kind of supports my argument here, having Colbie Young at number two. If you remember the second half of the Alabama game, when we needed to make plays or trying to mount that furious comeback, who were we feeding late in that game? Colbie Young. I don't think that was by accident. I think our coaches knew last year that he was the one guy after the Rah Thomas situation. He was the one guy that we had the X receiver position that could be a matchup problem, that could go up and just win those one-on-one contested catch balls, which he's a master at. And if you go back to the Alabama game, what were we doing that late in the game? We were throwing one-on-one balls to him, and he made a couple of those plays. Carson missed a couple throws there, didn't quite put it in the right spot. One gets picked off. We know the rest is history, right? But I don't think that we were trying to get the ball to him late in that big of a game by accident. Okay. I think him going out last year was an underrated part of the issues that Georgia had offensively. That wasn't the only issue. We had a lot of issues offensively. Injuries were a big part of that. Offensive line was banged up. Carson has fair share of issues. A lot of things going on, right? But him going out and not having a true X receiver was certainly on the list of issues we had offensively last year. Do you think that was an underrated part of our struggles a year ago on the offensive side of the football? Now, I say I struggle with Colbie Young because I'm high on a bunch of the receivers. I think that Colbie Young, I think that Noah Thomas, I think Zachariah Branch, I think any of those three could end up leading Georgia in receiving this year. But if I had to pick one, I'm going to go with Colbie Young. Why? Well, he's the guy that has been in the system at least a full year more than the two transfers we brought in that I just mentioned, Noah Thomas from Texas A&M and Zachariah Branch from Miami, or from USC, right? Colbie Young coming over from Miami prior to last year. He's been in the system. I know that he missed about half the year practicing with us, but he was here for all of spring practice, all of fall camp the year before that, played about 5 or 6 games for us last year, came back to the team right before bowl practices late in the season, didn't play for us because he wasn't fully clear. His legal situation was still kind of in limbo there, but he was back on the team. He was back at practice. He was getting reps. And he also has a nice rapport with Gunnar Stockton during that time as well. So the fact that he is just more up to speed with our system, combined with what I think is really, really a high level potential. I think he's got great athleticism. I think he's a contested catch machine, 6'3", about 210, 215 pounds. He's big, fast, physical, can win that tough ball, can win the one-on-one battle. I think this is the guy that's going to lead Georgia in receiving. And guys, we need a receiver like that. We need a bona fide number one guy. And I believe that Colbie Young is the most likely candidate to be that guy for Georgia in 2021. And that's why I do believe that Colbie Young is going to have a breakout year for the Dogs in 2025. So should he be at number two? Guys, I struggle with that myself. I went back and forth in that, but I do think that Colbie Young has an immense amount of potential at that position. I do think that getting back last year and just working with the team, now going to year 2 with the team, like at least in terms of being in the system, I think that's huge for Colbie. I think he's going to have a big, big year for the Dogs this season. And finally, number one. I feel pretty good about this one. Now, he was not in the initial iteration of this list, he was not number one. He wasn't even number 2. The more I thought about it, the more I went back and watched tape, the more I started to change my mind. So finally, in the official top 5 breakout player list for the Georgia Bulldogs, I got safety KJ KJ Bolden as the #1 breakout player candidate for the Georgia Bulldogs in 2025. Let's talk about why. Well, number one, the guy is a freaking awesome football player, an awesome athlete. We all know, big-time high school recruit at Buford High School, top 15 player nationally, 5-star recruit. Florida State, initially committed to Florida State, we thought he was going to Georgia, and that was a crazy situation. Then he flips to Georgia late in the cycle, and thank God we got him. Because as a true freshman, from day one, KJ Bolden was a dude. From day one, he belonged. From day one, this guy got it. He never looked lost. Never looked like he didn't belong up there. Never looked hesitant. This guy's confident. This guy's athletic. He is one heck of a football player. And he was able to break into Georgia's lineup last year and play 62% of our defensive snaps when you have a former first-team All-American back there in Malachi Starks, a first-round draft pick of the Baltimore Ravens, and cult favorite Dan Jackson, who might not be the NFL star that maybe Malachi Starks will become, but was one heck of a college football player and had been here for about 17 years, I think. So I knew the system inside and out. So with those two players there, KJ Bolden was able to crack the lineup. And not only crack the lineup, play 62% of our defensive snaps. And this year, with both Malachi and Dan Jackson gone, make no mistake about it. KJ Bolden is the guy at safety. He is that dude. I think KJ Bolden could not only have a potential all-SEC caliber year, I think KJ Bolden could be in contention to have an all-American caliber year for Georgia in 2025. And I know there's some good players out there. I know Caleb Downs is still out there, right? Good football player, right? We all understand that. I know Dylan Thieneman. I know he's really good. There's a lot of good safeties out there. But KJ Bolden's on that list, y'all. And again, as good as he was as a true freshman for an SEC championship football team, to be that good in year one, what can this guy do in year two? I think his ability is off the charts. I think his potential is off the charts. And I don't think we have to wait till year three. A lot of times, by the time he's a junior, this guy's going to be an All-American. Why we got to wait till he's a junior? Malachi Starks was a first-team All-American as a sophomore. Why can't KJ Bolden? Why not? I mean, he's incredibly athletic, and he'll also hit you. Like he's not as big as Malachi, but don't let that fool you. This guy will straight up lay you out. Run those alleys, he'll lay you out. He might not be the heat-seeking missile that Dan Jackson was, but he will come up and he will strike. You can play center field, you can cover man. This guy is the real deal, and I think he is going to be an absolute household name across the United States of America in 2025 as one of the best defensive players in the entire country. So that's why I got KJ Bolden coming in at #1. Now, before we get out here, guys, again, I told you at the outset of the show, I agonized over this list. So I do want to throw some honorable mentions at you. Is that cheating? I don't know. You be the judge. Maybe. I don't care. There's some guys that I think deserve to be on this list, but I can only put 5. In fact, for a minute, I was like, I'm just going to do a top 10 list. But no, that is cheating. I do a top 5 series. We're not going to make it a top 10 series. Can't cheat like that. So here are my honorable mentions. Gunnar Stockton. All right. I mean, I didn't put Gunnar on the list for a couple reasons. Number one, I think everyone knows who Gunnar is, right? Even casual college football fans know Gunnar Stockton's name because there's been so much conversation about Gunnar Stockton. And Georgia's a high-profile program, one of the most high-profile programs in the country. And the quarterback position is the most high-profile position on any football team. So people know this guy's name. He started the college football playoff game against Notre Dame last year, came back and led the SEC championship victory. So average fans know him. So would it be a breakout season? Like maybe. But for me, here's why, honestly, why Gunnar didn't make the list for me. I have seen enough from Gunnar that I'm no longer a skeptic. I made that clear. I know you don't need me to say that again. If you've been watching the show, been listening to the show for a long time, you know my evolution on Gunnar Stockton. I am no longer a skeptic in terms of can Gunnar play. Gunnar can play. I've seen enough. Every time I've seen this guy over the past calendar year, he's gotten better and better and better and shown me more and more and more. I'm a believer, okay? My only question remains, what is the ceiling? I am convinced the floor with Gunnar Stockton is very high. The floor is very high. I feel very confident saying that. What I can't tell you right now is the ceiling. That's TBD because we haven't seen enough to say yet. All right. Again, I've seen enough to say I'm not freaking out. I'm not worried like I was coming out of fall camp last year, going to practice, like I was when he entered the SEC championship game. Right. And when he first won the game, I was like, oh my God. he's made me more of a believer, right? So I think the floor is high. Like, we're not going to bottom out with Gunnar Stockton. The guy's a good quarterback, but is he an elite quarterback? Is he going to be a guy that's going to break out and be a star, one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC? I think he can be. I'm not going to say he can't. I just don't know yet. I haven't seen enough to say that yet. So that's why I left Gunnar off the list. But you can certainly make a strong argument for him. Elo Madozi's and whatnot. He's one guy that initially was on this list. On this list up until about like yesterday. I went back and forth on this. So Elo Madozi, if you're not familiar with that name, he's a transfer from Army. He's an edge rusher. A big position of need for us in the transfer portal. Went out and got him from Army in the spring portal window. Huge get. Huge get. I think that Elo Madozi absolutely could be a breakout star for Georgia this year. But I'm not as confident saying that right now as I am about the 5 guys that did make my list, because number one, I haven't seen as much. I went back and I've scoured the internet and watched as many of the Army games as I can, found as much tape of his as I possibly can. So I found that, right? But I'm still not as familiar with his game as I am with a guy like CJ Allen, who I've watched intimately for 2 years and watched every game that we played multiple times, right? I haven't seen Elo Madozi that much, right? So I'm not as familiar with this game as I would be the guy like CJ Allen. And he's also making a big jump in competition. That's always a question with me. I love what I saw from him at the American Conference level a year ago, guys. But it's G5 football, all right? The SEC is a different beast. Now, I do think that his athleticism, his wingspan is going to translate. I do believe that. But it's still a question, right? That's a question I have about him that I don't have about the 5 guys that did make the list. I'd also say he was initially a wide receiver that has basically made the move to edge rusher in the last year and a half, 2 years. So he's still developing that position. And he's got 2 years at Georgia. Now, I hope he's so good this year and he does break out that he goes pro after this year. That would be ideal, because it means he was awesome for Georgia. But I still think that he's developing that position. I think it's good for him to come into Athens and get the kind of coaching that he'll get from Georgia. I think that will certainly accelerate his development. But he wasn't here for the spring. I think that hurts him a little bit there. So I just think there's maybe one question too many about Elo Madozi. I think what I would include, because I'm going to keep doing these top 5 lists, I have one coming up here in a couple weeks that's going to be my top 5 X factors. I think Elo Madozi fits much more as an X factor, as a guy that if he ends up being as good as I think he can be based on his athletic skill set, he could absolutely be a star for Georgia. So he was in consideration. In fact, at the very last second, I bumped him off for Nate Frazier. All right, that's how they ended up going. A little inside baseball there for you. Lawson Lucky's a guy that, I think did some good things for Georgia last year. His first real significant playing time. Played some in 2023, but not a ton. Certainly dealt with an injury early in 2023 after having a big offseason with fall camp and spring practice. He filled in admirably for Brock Bowers. He wasn't Brock. He's not going to be Brock, because Brock is one of one. Brock is Brock, right? But I thought Lawson did some good things. I think Lawson flashed for us last year at times. I think he showed me that he's got a lot more in the tank and can be a lot more of a factor in the passing game for Georgia than he was a year ago. And I think in year 2 of being essentially a starter for Georgia, I think he could be a guy that breaks out for Georgia. Not to the Brock Bowers level, but I think he could be a breakout receiving threat for Georgia at tight end. So you can watch him. You can watch for him certainly, but I just I don't feel as strongly about him as I do the 5 guys that made the list. You guys know how much I love Chris Cole inside linebacker, but I left him off the list because, again, I don't think he's not going to start. I don't think he's going to start. He's going to play a lot for us. He's going to be in the rotation inside linebacker. He's going to be a third down demon for us off the edge. And I think we're going to use him in a variety of ways on third down. It's kind of like we used Jalen Walker in the past couple of years on third down, so we get to our dime package. So he absolutely could be an impact player for Georgia. In fact, I expect him to be an impact player for Georgia. But can I put him on this list ahead of CJ Allen, who I think is going to start for Georgia and is going to year 2 as a full-time starter and start a bunch of games as a freshman? I don't think I could quite do that yet, even though I do think Chris Cole has a higher upside long-term than CJ does, although I love CJ. And then finally here, the other 2 wide receivers I mentioned, besides Colbie Young, Zachariah Branch coming over from USC, and then Noah Thomas from Texas A&M. I think either one of those guys could potentially lead Georgia receiving. I just have them behind Colbie Young because they're a year behind him, getting up to speed with our system. So That's why they didn't make the list. But if you want them on the list, if you think more highly of one of those two guys than you do Colbie Young, I won't fight with you much, guys. I won't. So again, I'm not saying my list is definitive. This is just my list, a list I very much agonized over with, lost sleep over, guys, because I want to get this right. But yeah, there's my list, guys. Again, we got Nate Frazier coming in number 5, CJ Allen coming in number 4, defensive tackle Christen Miller at 3. We've got Colbie Young at number 2. Some of my fingers don't always work. And KJ Bolden as the number 1 breakout player for the Georgia Bulldogs in 2025. All right, guys, I really hope you enjoy this episode. These are always fun to do. It's fun to get that conversation started. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please like, please subscribe. All that's a huge help, guys, as I continue to try to grow this channel. We've been running the audio side of things, going on 11 seasons now, but we're really getting this YouTube channel going over the past year-ish or so. Really trying to kick it into high gear as we get closer to the 2025 season. So any help you could offer is certainly greatly appreciated. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate you. I'm Tyler, and as always, go Dogs!
Man, is there going to be some property destroyed tonight. 26-21. Dogs on top.